All right, gang, so here is our hatching sphere. I'm taking a cup so that I can trace it to get a good circle for our drawing. And I'm working in a Sharpie. Again, if you're working digitally, please use like the sphere drawing tool or a circle drawing tool to give it those nice lines. The first thing that we're going to do is mark our light source, or where all of that light is going to be coming from. That's also going to determine where our shadows are. I mark mine with a little sun. And for the hatching, those are the multiple sets of parallel lines. So with the hatching, I'm going to start here at the bottom, and I am just going to kind of make those lines just coming up the side of this sphere. I would always recommend starting out lighter than you plan, because you can always darken it. So as we get closer to the sun, you'll notice that these lines, I'm going to kind of space them farther and farther apart, so that it's going to give the impression as we kind of start adding these layers up that the lines are representing light, and they're going to get lighter and lighter as we move towards our light source. In turn, that means the bottom's going to get darker. It also means that these lines are going to get closer together. So we're going to add more of these lines. It's important to go with the curve of your sphere so that it keeps it looking 3D. If you go in exactly straight lines, it's going to look really kind of stripey and awkward. So go kind of with the curve of that sphere as you're adding all of these lines on there. And remember that they are closer together at the bottom, meaning that there's going to be more lines down at the bottom. And as you move up, you'll get fewer lines, and they're going to start to kind of spread out a little bit. And again, when I'm shading these almost in like a C shape. So I'm adding these lines, and I'm just trying to kind of taper them out a little bit farther as I move up the sphere. And again, I'm working with kind of that C shape. You can start to see it's kind of starting to take a little bit of an effect here. All of my lines are pointing up in that kind of right direction. They don't have to point towards your sun as long as they all match the same direction when you're done. What you don't want is you don't want lines kind of starting to turn in on themselves. You want to make sure they're all going the same direction. And I'm adding more of those layers to kind of darken up the bottom. And it's super, super important that as I move up, I'm spacing my lines farther and farther apart. So you can see more white space on the sphere as it goes higher. I'm going to add one last little layer to this bottom just to really give it a strong sense of value. And there we have our crosshatch sphere. The next thing that we need to do is add the little cast shadow. The cast shadow is going to be opposite of wherever this sun is coming from. So on this one, it's going to be like a squatty little fat oval. And I would always start by marking those out with the hash marks. Start with it farther away. It's going to be darker towards this base, and it's going to get slightly lighter as it goes out, but it's not going to be as bright as it is on this sphere, because this is a really bright spot, but this is still a shadow. So you're still going to have a little bit of hatching in here because it is a shadow, and it's just going to be a little bit darker towards this base. So when it starts to look liney, you can see if I go in a straight row, how it starts to look a little bit liney here. You can avoid that by kind of going in between those lines to keep that stripiness away. We don't want it looking super stripy. All right, so we have kind of one base layer on there that all looks almost like one color of the shadow. I'm going to darken up just a tad here towards the bottom so you get a little bit of that gradient effect. So it looks like the shadow's a little bit darker towards the base of the sphere. Alrighty, well there you have your hatching sphere.